Most enforcers fade out. Paul Bissonnette cashed in. The bench wasn't a dead end. It was a front row seat. Fights got him noticed. Personality made him famous. They called him a plug. Now he sits next to Gretzky. How does a guy with 7 career goals end up more powerful than the stars he used to protect? In hockey, a plug is the guy who barely makes the roster. The fourth liner. The guy who fights so the skill players don't have to. You don't build a franchise around a plug. You replace him. But there's another kind of plug. The plug in the room. The connector. The guy everyone gravitates toward. The one who makes things happen off the ice. Paul Bissonnette was both. Welland, Ontario. French-Canadian kid, drafted 121st overall by Pittsburgh in 2003. 4th round, depth pick. The kind of name scouts forget by dinner. He started as a defenseman. The problem was, his skills were dog shit. His words, not mine. So he reinvented himself. He learned to fight. Teammates Dennis Bonvie and Derek Anglin trained him like a boxer. He dropped the gloves and climbed a ladder with his fists. Spent years in the ECHL, Wheeling, West Virginia, the bottom of professional hockey. Bus rides, empty arenas, paychecks that barely covered rent. Then Pittsburgh called him up, October 16th, 2008. First NHL fight, Matt Bradley, Washington Capitals. Biz TKO'd him, bloodied his nose, dropped him to the ice. That's how you announce yourself. Career stat line, 202 games, 7 goals, 22 points, 340 penalty minutes. By every traditional measure, it's completely forgettable. But here's the thing about Biz. He understood something the skill guys didn't. The game on the ice was only half the battle. The real game? That was happening everywhere else. In 2009, Biz got claimed off waivers by the Phoenix Coyotes, and most guys in his position would have kept their heads down and stayed quiet. He did the opposite. A teammate convinced him to join Twitter, and instead of posting the usual athlete content about great practices and being blessed, he posted as he talked in the locker room, unfiltered, raw. Stories from the road, jokes about teammates, commentary on games he wasn't even playing in. The kind of stuff PR departments have nightmares about, and people loved it. By 2013, he had 397,000 followers, more than Patrick Kane, Henrik Lundqvist, or Steven Stamkos individually. All superstars with highlight reels and magazine covers. Biz had 7 career goals and a Twitter account. Coyotes GM Don Maloney put it perfectly. U.S. hockey fans might not know Paul Bissonnette per se, but Biz Nasty's a name everyone's familiar with. Then the NHL did something absurd. Instead of shutting him down, they brought him to appear in league training materials teaching rookies how to use social media. The guy who wasn't sure he'd make the roster was now educating first-round picks on building a digital presence. The most unfiltered player in the league became the NHL's official voice on personal branding. That's not ironic. That's a signal. But followers weren't the real asset. Players started gravitating toward him because of his energy, not his game. He made the room lighter and everyone around him more interesting. He wasn't trying to build a brand. He was just being himself, and people watched. But social media followers don't pay bills when your body breaks down. By 2014, the NHL was done with Paul Bissonnette. The Coyotes didn't re-sign him after 5 seasons, and suddenly the guy with nearly 400,000 Twitter followers was sitting on his parents' couch in Welland with no job and no plan. He took a PTO with the St. Louis Blues that September and played the entire preseason, but they released him on October 4th. A few weeks later, he was in Wales, playing for the Cardiff Devils in the British Elite Ice Hockey League just to stay sharp. 3 days after that, he signed another tryout with the Portland Pirates in the AHL. 8 games later, released again. Most guys would have called it a career right there. Biz kept grinding. He signed with the Manchester Monarchs in December 2014, the AHL affiliate of the Los Angeles Kings, and something finally clicked. The team went on a run, and in June 2015, they won the Calder Cup, beating the Utica Comets in 5 games. A championship at 30 years old, after everyone had written him off. But here's what nobody was paying attention to. After the Calder Cup, Biz played 2 more seasons with the Ontario Reign in the AHL. And And during that time, a small Barstool Sports hockey podcast called Spittin' Chicklets launched in October 2016 with Ryan Whitney and a blogger named Rear Admiral. It was nothing special at first, just two guys talking hockey. Then Biz showed up in episode 13, and the chemistry was immediate. On September 7th, 2017, he officially announced his retirement from professional hockey after 12 years. Most players at that point disappear into coaching jobs, front office roles, or beer league obscurity. Biz leaned in the other direction. On April 11th, 2018, Barstool announced him as a full-time co-host of Spittin' Chicklets, and suddenly he had a platform built specifically for his personality. The concept was simple: recreate the locker room atmosphere for fans who never got to experience it. Guys cracking beers, telling stories that would get them fined if they were still playing, saying exactly what they thought without a PR filter. Biz described it perfectly. You show up, you open your bag, there's a six-pack, and you never even put your gear on. And here's what separates him from every other retired enforcer. He didn't wait for someone to hand him a media job. He built the infrastructure himself while his career was still falling apart. Social media audience first, podcast platform second, leverage third. Look, at this point you're probably thinking, okay, successful podcast, good for him. But what happened next isn't a podcast story. What happened next is a case study in how to build something nobody saw coming. Within 2 years of Biz joining full-time, Spittin' Chicklets became the #1 hockey podcast in the world. Not just popular, dominant. It consistently ranked in the top 5 sports podcasts on Apple and Spotify, and in Canada, it cracked the top 5 across all genres, competing with shows that had nothing to do with sports. 3 guys with microphones had somehow built an empire. And then came the vodka. In October 2018, New Amsterdam Vodka signed on as a sponsor, and during one of the ads, they asked the hosts a simple question: how do you drink your vodka? Ryan Whitney, a 6'4" former NHL defenseman, looks straight into the mic and says he drinks it with pink lemonade, and that anyone with any brains or any balls or any sort of confidence would do the same. It was a throwaway line, but by the next morning, fans were flooding social media with photos of their homemade pink lemonade vodka drinks, and the hashtag #PinkWhitney started trending. Bars started putting it on menus. NHL arenas added it as a specialty cocktail. What started as a bit during a podcast ad read had turned into an organic movement. Biz saw what was happening and moved fast. He had the paperwork for a formal product partnership drawn up before Whitney even fully agreed to the idea. I was so over the moon because I have more of a business mind, he said later. While Whitney was still processing the viral moment, Biz was already thinking 3 steps ahead. On September 3rd, 2019, Pink Whitney officially launched nationwide. New Amsterdam expected the first production run to last an entire season, maybe 2. It sold out in 6 weeks. Within 2 years, the brand had moved more than 15 million bottles and generated over $100 million in sales, making it the fastest growing flavored vodka in North America and eventually the #1 flavored vodka on the continent. Not hockey merch, not a novelty product, a mainstream liquor brand born from a podcast joke. In February 2020, the Globe and Mail published a feature calling Biz the most influential person in hockey. He rejected the title publicly, but the evidence didn't care. Players wanted to come on his show. Sponsors were lining up. The NHL itself was using him for marketing initiatives. The plug had become the gatekeeper. Then Turner Sports came calling. In 2021, they launched NHL on TNT and wanted to build something that felt like Inside the NBA, the show that turned Charles Barkley and Shaq into cultural icons. They needed personalities who could be loose, funny, and unscripted. On September 14th, 2021, they announced the full roster for their studio coverage. And sitting at the desk was Wayne Gretzky, the greatest hockey player who ever lived, with 2,857 career points. Sitting right next to him was Paul Bissonnette with 22. On set, they were equals. 2 analysts breaking down the game, trading jokes, building chemistry. The gap between their playing careers was massive, but in the studio it didn't matter. Biz hadn't outscored Gretzky, he had outbuilt him in a space where points and goals were irrelevant. Elliot Friedman, one of hockey's most respected insiders, summed it up simply. He's a power broker. People clearly trust him. The plug who couldn't crack 10 goals in 6 NHL seasons was now shaping how millions of fans experienced the sport. Not through highlights, through access, authenticity, and a refusal to disappear when the league told him his time was up. So, what's the actual lesson here? Because it's not just about being funny on Twitter. The traditional path for hockey players is simple. Score goals, win championships, build a legacy on the ice, and hope that translates into opportunities after retirement. Biz had none of that, but he understood something they didn't. In the modern era, access beats ability. While skilled players were protecting their images and giving rehearsed answers to media questions, Biz was being radically transparent about everything. He talked openly about past substance use, embarrassing moments on the road, and the kind of locker room chaos that teams spend millions trying to keep private. Nothing was off limits, and that willingness to be completely real made him magnetic in a sport known for saying nothing. That transparency turned him into the guy every player wanted to talk to. When Sidney Crosby finally agreed to appear on Spittin' Chicklets, it was a massive moment for hockey, because Crosby famously avoids anything unscripted. But he trusted Biz. When Connor McDavid showed up for the mockumentary series Biz Nasty Does BC, he wasn't doing it for exposure. He was doing it because Biz had built a reputation as someone who would never burn a source or twist a story for clicks. When you become the bridge between players, fans, sponsors, and networks, your stats become irrelevant. Everyone needed to go through him. But connection alone doesn't build wealth, and Biz had business instincts most athletes never develop. When Pink Whitney started trending organically, he didn't sit back and enjoy the viral moment. He moved fast, and he wasn't waiting for permission from a league or a brand to tell him what he was worth. The career stat line tells one story, forgettable by any traditional measure. But that stat line doesn't describe Paul Bissonnette. The network he built does. The vodka brand generating over $100 million in sales does. The seat next to Wayne Gretzky on national television does. He stopped trying to be the best player in the room because he was never going to win that game. Instead, he became the most indispensable person in the building, and that's a position no amount of skill can take from you. That's the plug with the best career. Biz didn't beat the system by playing harder. He changed the game. While everyone else chased stats, he chased relationships. While superstars faded into retirement obscurity, the fourth liner built an empire. The lesson isn't about hockey. It's about understanding which game you're actually playing. Biz figured that out before anyone else, and now he's the one writing the rules. If this video gave you something, hit the super thanks button below. It goes directly to keeping stories like this one alive on this channel. And if you want more, players who got written off and rewrote their own endings, the next one is even better. Subscribe to Skates and Scars so you don't miss it.